But choosing a nitrogen stabilizer is very important. There's a lot of different modes of action, and it's going to be dependent, which one is best for you is going to be dependent on the source of nitrogen that you're applying, the timing that you're applying it, and also if you're going to be incorporating it or not. So I suppose the best way to kind of divide up most of the nitrogen stabilizers on the market would be the urease inhibitors and the nitrification inhibitors. So those are really the two biggest ways that nitrogen is lost in our soil, is through nitrification losses, so the conversion of sources like ammonium into nitrate. So nitrate, as we talk about in our ProAg meetings, is one of the leachable sources of nitrogen. It is a negatively charged ion, so is not held very tightly by our soil. So the idea is to keep the sources of nitrogen in forms that are not going to be susceptible to loss. So we talk about urease inhibitors. Those are going to prevent that urea to be converted to forms like ammonia that can be basically volatilized or evaporated off of the soil. So a common one that you could use with those broadcasted ureas is something like NBPT. So that reduces the activity of that urease enzyme, the enzyme that's responsible for that conversion over to a gas. And that's one way to do it. So we also have products like Sidekick or sulfur, which is a great nitrogen stabilizer or potassium thiosulfate because it contains so much sulfur. Sulfur, as we know, acts as somewhat of a natural nitrogen stabilizer, in that it's going to slow down that urease enzyme the same way a lot of the other active ingredients do. But then for nitrification inhibitors, the other kind of group or family of nitrogen stabilizers, those are what is going to prevent that conversion to nitrate, which is how we lose nitrogen through leaching through the soil. So if you've got a lot of water leaching through the soil and moving those negatively charged ions out, you're going to be losing that nitrogen downstream. So the idea is to keep that in a nitrogen form, such as ammonium, that can't be lost. So we talk about GCD or Guardian L, dicyandiamide. So the way that works is essentially by competing with ammonia that reacts with an enzyme called monooxygenase. So that enzyme is responsible for converting ammonia into nitrate. So we compete with that ammonia molecule essentially to make sure that enzyme is inactivated. There's other sources of nitrogen inhibitors or nitrogenation inhibitors, such as nitropyrin. So that's a common one. The way that works is actually that it's a biocidal pesticide. So rather than inhibiting that enzyme, you're actually killing the nitrous ammonium and the nitrobacter bacteria, as well as several other bacteria species in the soil that are responsible for converting organic matter to available sources, for instance. So that's kind of a quick rundown of the nitrogen stabilizers available on the market. We talk a lot about Guardian L, and we really think that that's the best one for a lot of reasons. It's very versatile. You can use it with several different sources of nitrogen that we discussed, whether it be UAN, manure, even anhydrous ammonia.